Welcome to Hanging Out with Robert, that's me. This video contains things that I encounter throughout the day. If for some reason I complete a task and you would like to see the details, you can click on the link in the description area below. This video also contains tips and tricks that I learned throughout the years. I plan on leaving this video accessible for about 30 days. After that, you can view it through my Patreon account. Thank you very much for watching. Kicking off the Tinker Day, back to this yellow T-5R waiting on the Quaife, and I had 0 PSI in my tire this morning. I just drove almost 2 hours. Let's see how much air I got. I pumped it up to 35. Yep, I got 33. So I could probably run for 6 hours before I have to air it up. So let's get this garage open and get cracking on this car. I might mix my video real quick. Here it is, folks. Patiently waiting for some more maintenance, which it'll get a lot today. We got the Quaife in. Man, that came in like 2 days from Europe. We ordered that thing on a Tuesday. It got here Thursday. I also ordered some of these bearings. I ordered these because if you have a shifter assembly in your 850 or whatever, and the shifting feels a little sloppy, there's a chance that the bushings that go on top of the transmission that's in the shift cable, did I put these shift cables in yet? Yeah. It's possible that these bushings are worn out. And when they are, it makes your shifting feel sloppy. See, that one's totally busted out. So I push those out real easy, and I press these in. And it helps your shifting feel a little crisper. Now, it's not like a short shifter kit, but it sure makes shifting feel a lot better with these in there. So if you need a set of these, let me know. I'll put them on my website. I have them handy. Send me a text message, email, or whatever, and I'll send you a couple of them so that you can crisp up your shifting on your bearing. And yeah, I just dropped those. But anyway, I have those in stock. So we are still waiting for the bearings that'll be pressed on the end of this Quaife and get this thing installed in the transmission so we can get it installed in the car. And here are the bearings we needed. Cut the tape there. Man, that don't look right unless that race looks that crazy. Look at the numbers. Yeah, it looks right. All right, good. There they are. 3,800 or something.
Yeah.
Made in Japan.
32008X.
Yeah.
14.
Checking out the bearing, and this has 21 rollers in it, and the Timken one has 22 rollers in the bearing assembly. Don't know if that really matters, but that's just a note for you guys. We dropped off the Quaife and the open diff, the new bearings, off at a transmission shop. They quoted us $140. Minimum 1 hour. That's his rate. So close to New York City.
Hopefully it won't be more than an hour.
That's what you get. Back in Indiana, it's $60. So anyway, I'm gonna get to work on a few things need to be done here. I'm gonna look at this hose, see if this turbo coolant supply hose need to be replaced, and dig into my parts and start installing extra stuff. I think I already put the rear main seal in. If not, maybe I'll do that next. First thing I'm gonna do is change these bushings in this cable. I'm gonna pull these 2 rubber bushings out. I'm gonna press a couple of these bearings in and then move on. I just noticed here that this cam sensor, that plug is damaged because half of the plug is in that harness. There it is, damaged cam sensor plug. Replaced that auto throttle body cable with a manual one. I disconnected it from the inside and just ripped it out of the firewall here and pushed the other one in until I heard the 4 little clicks, and it's good to go. We are ready to rock and roll with this thing. It broke off 4 of the little plastic clips coming out, but that ain't no big deal. The cable end was already stretched out, so this one's trash. Next up, we're going to try to replace this input shaft seal behind here. Usually one of these screws break, but we're going to try to avoid that. Get this out, replace that seal behind there. Screws of the housing came out easy, but man, that seal did not want to come out. We ended up putting 3 holes in this seal to get it to come out with the screw. Got it out, drove the replacement in, had to reset it a little bit so it catch on that lip. So we should be good to go. Actually, the outer lip is probably not important. It's the inner lip that rode on that thing. So we're probably in a little bit deeper than we need to be, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and wipe this off, put these screws back in here, and get ready to...
I just want to put this diaper under this corner because it's still draining oil.
Put the Quaife in this thing. The flywheel is on and torqued. Time to put the clutch on. It's the part number for the R clutch. There it is with the blue springs. Let's get this installed. Clutch kit is installed. You should be able to read the writing that says gearbox side. And I used a long 3/8 inch extension to center this thing. I don't know if you could use a 1/2 inch extension as well, but I just wiggled it around until it felt centered, and then snugged the bolts down on the outside of it and torqued them down. So it should be centered with the pilot bearing. Since this vehicle is running the 20T and some other performance mods, DO88 intercooler and stuff like that, we're going to be putting in this higher flow fuel pump, and he has wiring for it. So we're going to wire in a higher flow fuel pump. I'm going to look on somebody's instructions to see how to do that on these 850s. I've never rewired the wiring system for one of these, but evidently people are under the understanding that some of the original wiring is deteriorating, so putting new wiring on them or heavier gauge wiring in on them is a wise thing to do. So yeah, I would definitely say this is heavier gauge wiring. This looks like 14 gauge wiring. It probably has 16 or 18 gauge wire in there. This is recommended by the tuner, Aaron at Fast. I never was told that recommendation, but my buddy Jim here was. So here is the wiring instructions, and man, this thing is 12 gauge wiring. Here's this wiring kit. I had to make out where the switch comes from. I assume that means switching from the ignition. I wouldn't know if that means position 1 or 2. I'm going to assume that's a hot lead from position 2. You don't want the fuel pump running in switch number 1. Then the yellow goes to power on the pump, and then the black grounds the relay. So looks like only one line goes to the pump, the power, and the pump has its own ground already.
Under that.
So the Dutch work instructions, this is what I understand. Black ground to the relay. So you just ground the black to the chassis. Yellow, power to pump. You hook this up at the top of the pump, or as close as you can to the pump so that you don't have any power drop with degraded wire. If you could shoot that thing inside the pump assembly, do that. But probably going to end up right at the pump connector, because that wiring from the pump to the connector shouldn't be that old. But if it is, you know, it's just a foot of wire, not all the wire running through the whole car. So that yellow is going to power the pump. This blue is switched to the relay harness side lead. That means that your power lead that's currently going to the pump will be hooked up to this blue wire. So back as close as you can to the pump, you disconnect the power lead from back there, you hook it up to this blue, and it will power the relay on, which will give the red the okay to power the yellow one through the relay, and this red wire is hooked up right to your battery terminal. So you're eliminating all of the fuel pump wiring from the ignition switch or wherever it comes from all the way to the pump connector. So you're going to have fresh hookup from the battery to the actual fuel pump. So let me go ahead and wire this in and let you know how it works. We also have a new fuel pump that we're going to install. This DW200, and it just gives a constant 40 psi up to 255 liters per hour. So let's go ahead and pull the fuel pump, get this pump installed, get this wiring done, get that fuel line hooked up, get that sock on, which is very difficult, and be ready for performance. In this video, we're going to be installing the Disassembly wiring harness to the fuel pump. This is recommended if you have a vehicle that's older than 10 years old. It could have wiring in it that's powering the fuel pump that's degraded and not giving the pump all of the 12 point whatever volts it should be getting. So this is a wiring harness that'll put new power to that pump. It has a relay here, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how this is installed, and we're going to put a new pump in. If you're going to do performance mods, this is recommended, but if you know that your fuel pump is getting its 12.4 volts or whatever that it should get, it's no problem, it's not needed. But we're going to do it on this vehicle because we can. Access your fuel pump in this vehicle, it is here. Took off these 5 bolts. We're going to pop this off and then take the top off of the fuel pump. If you're not going to mess with the fuel pump, you can actually just access the wiring harness right here that's under this flap. So wherever your fuel pump plugs into, just access the wiring there. Now whenever you replace a fuel pump sending unit, you have fresh wiring going from the tank to the connector. So you're just bypassing that connector down to the pump, because all this other wiring should be new. And even if it's not, you got a short run, a foot of wiring that's not new. Everything else throughout the car will be new with this wiring harness. Got the fuel pump out. It's real important to make sure you got a long enough hose here to attach your new fuel pump, and double clamp it on both sides if you can. I popped the sock off. That does look like it's a little dirty, and now's a good time to look down in the tank to see if that fuel is bad or if there's some sediment collecting in the bottom of the tank, especially on the garage queen. If it is, just suck all that stuff out, use it somewhere else, put fresh fuel in your car. Garage queens are really not a great idea, but some people have them. So I'm going to take this fuel pump unit apart, undo these 2 clips on it, 1 on each side, slide this unit out, undo the hose, and work on getting the other pump installed. I'm going to unplug that plug there too. So all of your wiring from here to inside the pump will still be wiring for the pump. This pump is not original because originally these cars didn't have this, so you could look for a date to see when this wiring was replaced. But if you want to try to go through the hassle of replacing the wiring all the way down to the pump, you can. I just don't know how you'd work that out. So from here to inside the pump is going to be what the pump has. Through the rest of the car, it'll have fresh wiring to this connector. This pump assembly must have been the newer style. It has like an extra little ground strap that goes up in here, connects around these pipes. It was kind of a jigsaw puzzle getting out. Now, here are the two pumps. This is the original pump. This is the Dutchwork pump. And you see the casing on the Dutchwork pump is about a 1/2 inch longer. This pump is kind of held in the casing by this tab here, and that tab will not reach to the top of the Dutchwork pump, so that's something to be aware of. Another kind of challenge in dealing with these pumps is that the sock is designed different. You see the Volvo sock comes, this is the center point, or this is where it connects to the pump. You got maybe 1.5 inches that way and 1.5 inches this way. That's how it hooks up. Well, this Dutchwork sock is all to one side, which makes it 1.25 inches longer this way. Well, inside the Volvo tank, this barely clears. It clears by about 1/4 inch, maybe 1/2. Well, this will rub the side of the inside of the tank, and that usually knocks the sock off in the tank. So you can't mount this sock the way it's sent to you by Dutchwork, or you'll knock it off putting the unit in the tank. So just be aware of that.
Can you use this sock?
You can. It's an old sock, but it's a little dirty. It's got some chemicals on there. You could probably spray it clean, brush it off with a vinyl brush. It still has its integrity, so yeah, you could probably use this sock.
Or get a new one?
I don't know where you get a new one from. As long as it's shaped like that, that would be fine. But if it's shaped like this, that won't be fine. Oh, man. Let's look in the tank and see what's going on in the tank. We have a fuel tank that is maxed out. And see, gas is typically clear. This fuel is getting orange. Orange fuel basically means that it's going bad. And this gas can actually eat up a pump. So you don't want to have a garage queen around with a full tank of gas, because that's not good. You see very little sediment in the bottom of the tank. See the cup area that I was talking about? The sock would rub the side. Now the Volvo tank is designed to make fuel run into that very bottom piece of the tank, so that you can run this tank down probably to 1 quart of gas. It won't be splashing around. It'll be trapped in this cup area in the tank. So you do, I guess, need to know that. That's a good thing to know. You could run it down real low, but that sock will probably hit the sides of that cup area in this tank if you install it the way it's designed. So he needs to get this fuel out of here, use it up or something, get fresh fuel in here. And he needs to figure out a better way to mount the sock, which I'll show you what I do. Ideally, you would want to cut a connector out of a different car that has the same gauge wiring. This looks like probably 16, maybe 14 gauge wire. I'd say 16 gauge wiring. And I have another connector here that has the same gauge wiring, so I'm gonna use it instead of cutting into the harness of the fuel pump. These things are keyed when they're the same color. This is a different color one, so it was keyed different. I cut the key off of that connector there so it can plug into here. So this will plug in here. Now that I cut the key off, you see this gray connector has a key in the middle and 3 keys on the bottom. This black connector had a key on this edge close to the number 2 and 3 on the bottom. So it did plug in. It is tight, and since this side is black, I'm gonna hook up my ground here and my power here coming off my relay. So my yellow is gonna go here. I'm gonna share the ground with this, and I'm going to share the ground off of the relay I have, and I'm going to ground it to a fresh ground on the chassis. So let me go ahead and prep that, hook that up. This is the power off of the vehicle. I only need the power to do a signal. So I could plug a plug in here and only have a wire going to this power as a signal to the relay. So this pink wire will go to the blue wire on the relay to signal it power. And then the red wire is going to run all the way up to the battery. So we took this housing that the OEM pump was in, and we grounded off all of the tabs. You see that little tab there? We ground all those off. Then we were able to really push this Ductwork pump in here, and you have to line up this gray thing to come into that hump. And if you look under there, there's like a stop on the pump that stops on the bottom of here, and there's a channel there and a channel there, so it has to be in between those for this to be somewhat centered. And then on the back side, it rests on that. So now this is ready to put back together with the sock. So may not be a bad idea to find a sock from another company that's not spread out like that. Something you could check into. We're going to look into it and see if we could get one that'll be a better fit, and share that information on this video. One thing good about this new replacement pump is this is a little higher. If you set them on top of each other, this comes at least a 1/4 of an inch higher. That will allow you to double clamp the hose if need be, and that way you can reduce the risk of this hose coming loose in the tank. Now this hose that came originally with the other fuel pump unit, which I may repeat was not original, is longer than the hose that came with the Ductwork pump by far. So you can't use this hose. It's simply too short to double clamp. I don't know if it's necessary to double clamp, but it's advisable. These hoses have been found off inside the pump, and if you get hose this length, we'll measure it. It looks like it might be 5 inches. To go inside this unit, it has to be fuel hose for fuel pressure, and it has to be immersible. You can't use regular fuel injecting hose. It won't last inside the tank being submerged in fuel. So you have to get fuel line that is submersible and that can hold the fuel pressure. This pump had some kind of plastic coating labeled stuff on there I tore off. That'll help this ground make its true contact to it. Let's go ahead and see if we can get a sock on here. I did pull this hose off of the old pump and pushed it on this pump without releasing this clamp. This pipe is flared on both pumps, so it shouldn't come off. I've never seen this side come off. It's always been this side that's on the tip of that in there that's not flared. Always before you install your pump, make sure your polarity is right. You see the positive there on the right. The positive is here on the right, positive symbol there, negative symbols on the left, and the negative symbol is on the left on this pump. So polarity is correct. We can go ahead and plug this in. We should be good to go. Getting ready to put this fuel pump in here, hook it up to my jump box. We got vacuum line hooked up to it.
And we can stop it when we're full, right?
Yeah. And move it over to the next one. What are those? 5 gallons or what?
These are all 5s.
All right, so I got a wire harness hooked up here. I'm gonna hook up to my jump box and turn my jump box on.
You want to throw something on top of the gas over there where the pump is? Just cover it with something?
Nah.
Okay.
The fuel pump is running. I'm gonna drop it in this tank and it should start pumping.
Leaking out the bottom of the tank. Maybe
Yeah, because it was so much, but it's sucking down pretty quick. It's out of the cap at least already. It might take 10 minutes.
250 gallons per hour. That's a lot. That's a heating oil tank full.
Maybe it's 250 liters per hour. That's probably more like it. But we're going down here. As long as my jump box lasts, it'll keep pumping. Seems like it's pumping a good stream though, right?
I mean, for the diameter of the hose, you can't expect much.
Yeah, that's a good pressure. And it's probably not getting 12 volts out of my jump box. My jump box is acting really crazy. So if it dies soon, we know why. I'm not going to turn it on because I hate to see the number. It says it's at 90%.
They have a number.
Yeah, but when I turned it on the other day, it was like 90, 89, 87, 86, 85. It was dropping that fast. So maybe it'll run long enough for us.
Good thing I used that grill when you were here.
So it's like a gallon every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And those are 5-gallon buckets. It's still going down. After about 5 minutes, it's only taking down about a gallon. So this might take a little while. 25 minutes to fill one of them jugs. We'll see. The old sock went on. As you can see, it doesn't stick out far from the housing. A ½ inch at the most. Still pumping gas. It's getting weak. Sounds like I'm sucking air in here. I had to pump off of the bottom, but it's on the bottom now. Doesn't have a sock on it. This is the third gas can we're trying to fill. Tank's supposed to hold 19 gallons, so we're pumping all this questionable gas out. That's where we're at in the tank. You can see it's down into the little contraption area there that's filling up. And we'll be out of gas because we want fresh gas, not old gas. Now this was filled up recently, but it has some older gas in it. It was topped off with fresh. I think you should run a tank of gas to your car at least every 3 months. You don't want gas over 3 months old in there. So you want to at least do 120 miles a month in your car if you can. If not, man, just run it almost empty, then store it. Then you fill it up with fresh gas. This old gas in your pump will eat up your pump. It might be best to make sure you pump gas that doesn't have ethanol in it if you're going to be storing it.
You can get stored.
There it is. My jump box pumped the whole tank out. Let me tell you how long it took. Was looking over the pump to make sure we were ready to put it in, and that clamp down there was sprung loose. So I was able to use channel lock to get that snap back together. We got 2 up here. We're going to put this together. Now that's a ground. We're going to ground that to the normal ground with the other connector that's coming off the thing, and then we're going to hook the power lead coming off that connector to there. I got a connector here that I'm going to do that with. And actually I might run that ground over with this big ground that's going with the car. So here's the fuel pump. I wiped the top of it off. I wrote DW200 on there. I'm gonna date it. And we just can unplug it from my wire job for the Dutch work wire harness fix. So on this wire harness relay Dutch work deal, I got the green soldered to the yellow that will power the fuel pump. I got this. So this goes to the power on this. When this is plugged in like this, you see the green matches the red. Then this blue-green matches the ground. I got this ground going to the vehicle. I'm going to also ground the relay to the vehicle. I just drilled a hole right here that I put a self-tapping screw in that's going to ground the ground coming out of the harness from the car. It's also going to ground coming out of the pump to here, and it's also going to ground from the relay to there. This black is going to the ground to the car harness. So I'm plugging this into the car harness. So this relay has two plugs on it. One plug plugs into the pump. The yellow goes to the green, which is positive, to the pump, to the red. The black goes to the ground in the pump, and this ground, I'm going to ground to the car, and this ground goes to this other plug on the harness, which is the black wire grounding to the plug in the car. Then I got this black that is going to be grounded where I've drilled that hole in the car. So the ground coming off the pump and the car harness, I got that ground wide, is going to be ground to the car now, and to wherever else that ground is. A ground is a ground. It should be ground to chassis. It shouldn't be any conflicts in having two different wires grounding something. And the red black on this will plug into the car and get the signal from the car positive that used to power the fuel pump, and that's wired into this blue, which will activate this red, and this red is going straight to the battery. So that's how this is going to go. The pump will run normally like it used to run, even though this relay is just controlling when this power is going to be on, as the car used to control when this power is going to be on. Hope that makes sense. So the yellow is going power to the pump. The blue is going power to the car that used to power the fuel pump. The black is being grounded to the chassis of the car, and this red is being run up to the battery. I got to wire this through the car to the battery. I have the harness from Dutch Work. I got a blue going to the positive in the car to get the signal from the car to activate the relay to power the pump. I got the yellow going to a female plug that going to the power to power the pump. The other end of that is going to a ground to the car, also to a ground back to the vehicle harness. So the vehicle harness has a positive and a ground. The positive is going to signal the blue to activate the relay. The ground is just going to share a ground off the pump to the chassis, and I got a ground loop to the chassis here. So ideally you want to go to a donor car and cut both ends of the connector of the fuel connector off and use it so you're not using lower gauge wiring. Like this is probably 18 gauge wiring. It'll be better 16. Heck, this might even be 20 gauge wiring. But it's only going to send a signal to the relay, so that should be good. If not, we'll find out. But the pump is going to be powered by this red one. Now that I have this ready, I'm going to plug this yellow one into the car harness, plug this black one into the pump harness, and then I'm going to ground this, run this positive wire up to the battery. I should be good to go. These stupid headlights. The driver's side headlight is pointing all the way into oncoming traffic lane. Piece of junk. I need to get that fixed. I didn't know that was going all the way over there. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.